That's not my role. I would try to help as much as I can. But if they want me to design, this is what I do. So it's the same. We don't go to the doctor and say, can you please give me a consultation for free, like you are my friend, you know? It doesn't work like that. So this is one big lesson that it was hard to take, but I recommend you to always value yourself. And one thing I learned recently, we have more power than we think. This is like, I'm gonna tattoo that in my arm, because you have more power than you think. Especially if you are qualified, you are a hard worker, which I believe all of you are. You have more power than you think. Don't ever think that you have to beg for work. You know, you are very valuable. So always often people will try to take advantage on trying to make the most profitable situation for them or for the company. Value yourself. Okay, you are your best asset and most valuable. So so after that, I decided I need to put up my game in terms of digital media. So I asked my father, can you pay me a course in Sweden? Because I was looking for US, like Parsons University, but it was like $30,000. It was super expensive, like 10 years ago. And then I saw something in Europe, which was closer from home and a little bit cheaper for 2 years, $20,000 or 20,000 euros. Which I didn't have, not even 2,000, you know. So I asked my father, can you pay me this and I'll pay you back? And he's like, no, I'm tired of you traveling around. I want you to stay around in Portugal. I was like, oh, I really don't want to stay. And my father and my mom, they always taught me, never ask money for the bank, you know, which in America is a bit different, right? Because there's loans for students. In Portugal, you have the public universities, which are the best. And you pay like $100 per month or per year. It's really cheap. It's all by the government, you know. So my father said, never ask money for the bank, never ask a loan, otherwise you're gonna be like until here with debts, and it's not a happy life. I was like, okay. That moment, I felt so moved that I needed to put up my game that I said, Father, I'm gonna ask money to the bank. He's like, don't do that. I was like, if you don't give me the money, and then I asked my grandmother, his mother, which he had money. She said, I have no money. I was like, you are such a liar. She was totally manipulated by my father, you know. So I was like, okay, guys, it's good, I'm gonna do it. So I asked money for the bank, and they had like amazing rates for students. Of course, my father and my mom, they had to sign that if I didn't pay, they would. So that was a very good thing. I went, I got the money, I applied for the school, and because I paid with my money, I was so like a pain in their ass on the school, because I wanted the best, you know, the best outcome possible. The school is called Hyper Island, which it's in Stockholm. They started in Karlskrona, which is a prison, an island like a prison, where they did the school there, and it's based on IDEO. It's all about multidisciplinary teams. So developers, designers, in that case it was copywriters, not journalists, because it was towards advertisement, work together to come up with ideas, storytelling, campaigns, client engagement, and then audience engagement. So you would wear all the hats for 2 years, working with real clients. Imagine Coca-Cola would come to you and say, we need a campaign for the Christmas. And together you would think about how to tell the story, how to reach audience, what's the goals with the campaign, etc. So it was amazing, great power. You would pay to work, basically. So when I went there, it was the first year they did in English, an international version, because usually it would be in Swedish. So I was their worst in terms of pain in the ass. I was the worst, because I wanted a super high performance school that I paid for, and I wanted to take the best out of it. Mm-hmm. And then to add to that story, when I moved to Stockholm, my boyfriend broke up with me because he didn't want me to leave, because he said the distance would make us fall apart. I didn't believe that. So I was heartbroken. So I focused so much on school. First it was my money on this, and then I was heartbroken. I would sleep in school, and this is literally, I would sleep. I brought a mattress because I was like, life is over. And, you know, I was really heartbroken. And then I just devoted, and I was here for the first time, I was the best in my class, which I never was back in the university. And that made all the difference, because then at the holidays, the clients would come to me and say, I want to work with you during the holidays and I will pay you. So I started making money on clients that I had to work for free during the school that said, we liked your work, we want you to continue doing this. That was amazing. I got a bit of money, which in the summer holidays, we had the 1.5 months of holidays, people went back to their homes or went travel with that money. I grabbed the money and I was so pissed. I didn't want to go to Portugal to see my ex-boyfriend. So I went to London and I tried to set up a meeting with the editor, with the technology officers of every company that I dreamed of working, the best advertisement companies in London. So I was a pain again. I was like, I need to talk to you. Please give me 10 minutes of your time. They wouldn't come back to me. I would be coming again and again. And I would use this language that I'm using with you, like very one-on-one, not like excelentissimo, sir, you know, like just like, look, I really like your work. I'm very interested in working in your company. Could you give me a little bit of time just so I get a sense of what's the future of technology? Back in the time, it was 2010, it was, is Flash gonna die, for instance? Because I was trying to become good at Flash, storytelling with Flash, because I loved interactivity. But actually, if Flash was about to die, then me as a designer, I wanted to learn what's the new technology for me to learn so my designs can be interactive without depending on Flash. And yeah, I got lots of interviews in Starbucks all over London. I had this little money from the project, you know, that let me stay in London for a week. I stood at a friend's house. And then this volcano in Iceland exploded, and there was like smog all over the north of Europe that nobody could fly. It was really, really intense. So that made me stay another extra week in London without the money to do so, but thank God I had my friend. And that extra week, I was like, what am I gonna do? And then I just started browsing, what else can I interview? So I got in contact with the chief of technology of the Guardian newspaper, which for me was like a dream that I never dared to dream that I could ever be there. First of all, as a designer, I did not think, and this is so ridiculous that now I think about this, I didn't know as a designer I could work at the newspaper. I thought only journalists could. That was my mindset. So when I got given this interview and he gave me 3 hours of talking because I was like this, tell me everything, like a sponge. And he was like, la, 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 la. He loved the attention of having someone really keen to learn what the Guardian is doing. And then he was very kind to me and say, at the end he was like, Mariana, you are so excited about this, why don't you work here? Like, you would love to work here. I was like, you kidding me? I never thought that would be possible. Like, you asking me, like, you ask a blind man if he wants to see? Like, of course I want. I was like, when can I start? And he's like, okay, let me put you into HR interviews, and then with the supposed to be your boss. I was like, do it. So then he put me in these meetings, and I was like, on Skype. The meeting was later. I went back to Stockholm. They interviewed me. And then the HR was okay, they liked me. Like, they tried to see what's your personality, if you're gonna match the other people. And I was a good match. And then when my boss interviewed me, I remember he was like by Skype, and he has this mustache like D'Artagnan and the headphones, and it's like, so tell me. And he had a list of things that he needed in his whatever role he had for me. And then he's like, ticking. And then another thing was like motion. He was like, do you know how to do motion? I was like, yeah. And then I sent him a project that I have done to my client in the summer, which was about motion. He's like, this is amazing, this is exactly what I needed. So imagine, I'm a graphic designer that not necessarily has to have motion design skills, but by accident of my career I had, and that was the thing I learned the most. And he said, look, I really need these motion skills, because when we do an application, instead of just building the application with code, which takes a lot of time, you can design it, you can do an animation on how it will work, like where the mouse is going, and then we can pitch this to editors and have them sign off or sign in. I was like, perfect, that's so easy for me. So he said, okay, you are hired, you're coming in on August 2010, and this was like July. I was like, yes, you know. And then I had more 6 months to go at the university, at the Hyper Island, which I was like, and that was like internship. And I was like, you know what? I have my dream job right here, for even if it's just for a month. Why am I going back to university? I'm training to become good to get my dream job, and this is the dream job. So the dream job came a little bit beforehand. I was like, I need to get the dream job. So even though I paid for the university, that opportunity now seemed like I have to take this opportunity, and I will miss all the conference that will happen there, which are very valuable. But I was like, I'm doing something more meaningful for me. It's like hands-on experience. So first project, guess who? So Assange was passing in the corridor. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what WikiLeaks was. And then they said, you're going to design the WikiLeaks data visualization of the story. I was like, okay, whatever that is. And then they were like, you cannot tell this to anyone. I was like, wow, you guys here are very like extreme, right? I thought this is media. People are very like silent. And I was like, I called my mom in Portugal. Mom, I'm working on this project called WikiLeaks. My mom was like, shut up. I was like, what? I don't understand what this is. You know, my English, like the English of London, is very hard to understand. I had a hard time. In the beginning, I was like, what is WikiLeaks? Like, I didn't understand very well. And to catch up with the accents was a bit hard. So I was like, my mom was like, just shut up, do your work, and shut up, and be careful. You know, and there was this room called Top Secret, do not enter. I was like, this is ridiculous, you know? Like printed on an A4 paper, you know, very ridiculous. I was like, this is just so fun. Anyway, I was so happy to be at the Guardian, and the offices are amazing, all open space. So we all work open space with windows everywhere. You see King's Cross, it was amazing. So, and I was sitting like this, side by side with my boss for 1 month, like Monday to Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday he was showing me around London. So we became best friends. Even today we are best friends. And I trusted him so much. By the time we were both single, so we were both like going out and trying to find love, and he found love in that same month that I was there, and he's still with her. I didn't find any love. But I'm still single. Then he was training me. So basically, he was like so focused on me. We would come to the office like around 9:30, and from 9:30 until 6 or 7, he would focus on me, saying, okay, this is what we have to do, how are we going to do this? Not just a little meeting of half an hour and then go do your thing. No, the entire day, every day for that month, he would be on top of me. So we had a competition, and he's a very competitive man. We had a competition against New York Times and Decide in London, in Berlin. So we had to do the best thing. So he was training me, and I was like just absorbing everything. In this moment, I had no, you know, I was not putting my opinions out there so much because I didn't know anything. I was like, give me everything, I'll learn, and then I'll do my assumptions later when I have more experience here. So at the end, we did this, like, as you know, and as you can see by now, I'm not detail-focused, detail-oriented, I'm more the big picture. And he made me do one project that I would do in 2 days, he made me do during 1 month. That project had to be pixel perfect. Every day I would go and change 1 pixel. I was like, wow, this is so like, I'm so focused for the first time in my life, and I was bored, but at the same time, I was like, wow, but I can see the difference on being focused, you know? So at night, what I was doing, because I knew animation and I really want that job, I didn't know if they're gonna ask me to stay longer, but in the other department, I started becoming friends with other editors, inclusively one called Simon Rogers, which he started the data blog at The Guardian. And I told him, you know, I know how to do animations. Don't you have like data that I could do an animated story? He's like, yeah, sure. So he gave me, this was 2010, the Olympic Games would take place in 2012. So 2 days from there. So he gave me a paper with all the data, about a bit data, like how many trees will be planted for the games, how many people is gonna be taking involvement, like posting volunteers and working force, money, like all these small details. And I just grabbed that and I did an animation throughout 1 month. Every night I would go home and do the animation because I wanted to show off that I knew how to do animation, that they could use me elsewhere, you know? Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the month, the art director was totally training me to have the same style of The Guardian. I was extremely happy with the outcome. And then we presented this to the executive editor, who said, oh, this is quite nice, but you know, we never published an animation at The Guardian, so we don't know if our audience is gonna like it, so we're not gonna publish this. I was like, what? Like I didn't sleep much because I was really trying to impress The Guardian with the only skill I really knew how to do it. And then the editor was like, oh, that's a pity, but he has the last word, we cannot go, you know. I was like, oh, I was so sad. And then at the end of the month, they said, do you want to stay? We want to hire you. And I was like, yes, yes, I want. So then I got hired and never came back to Hyper Island. I did all my ending of course, through Skype and Vimeo. It was about doing videos. So I'd put everything there, but I didn't experience the last 6 months with my colleagues, you know, which it's a pity, but at the end of the day, I had my dream job. And then I tried to bring another girl there. So then some months later, the New York Times started posting animation videos. And then the editor executive came to me and said, oh, what about that video? Like, so you know how to do videos, right? Like now the New York Times is doing, and they are doing very well. So we want to do it as well. Can you do once a week, one? I was like, it's impossible. By myself, I was like designing, editing, animating, everything, you know? I was like, per week it's too much. I would have to work like 20 hours per day. Anyway, they then gave me a team, and then for special projects I would do animations. So we started doing animations finally. And then on 2012, the January like 1st or 2nd, they published the animation about the games, and that was by far the most seen project I ever done. Crazy, right? And 2 years late, now I look at it and it's like so old school, you know, like really old school. But I was happy that at the end the project saw the light of the sun, you know. So here, okay, something that I'm as a woman, I have a hard time negotiating salary, and I think it's extremely important. So when I got there, first of all, for the internship, they never had these kind of spontaneous internships, and they usually wouldn't pay people to work there. And I was like, dudes, this is my dream job. I would kill my own food to work here, but I need money because I really have no money. Sweden, like I was paying my loans. I have no money to eat and to stay. And the underground is like £100 per month, which I did not have. So I got a $50 bike, which got destroyed in the middle of one day. But I would bike for 1 hour and a half from the home of a friend of mine that gave me his house to stay for a month. And I would bike, because I didn't have money for the underground. And then I said, but I need money to eat. So they gave me £900 by the time, which was the most money I ever got in my life, which for London is very, very limited. It doesn't allow you to do much. To pay the underground, but I didn't pay the underground, so I could save for food. And I wanted to go to museums, you know, so stuff like that. So I had this bike, and when they hired me, they you know, about salary. They wanted to give me by the time 28,000. Which would be the most I ever done in my life. But seeing and having the experience of living there for a month, I knew I needed at least 35, like to feel comfortable, to get a house a little bit closer from work, and eventually to take the underground. And to negotiate from 28 to 35 was quite hard, but I was like, guys, I'm devoting my life here. My family and friends are all in Portugal. I'm here alone just because I love The Guardian. I will devote my life here. You will have the most focused employee you can ever ask for, but I need this money just because I need to live closer. I need to rent a house, stuff like London is extremely expensive. Like the rent is insane. So imagine a 1-bedroom would cost 15 or 1,600,000 pounds, which is almost $3,000. It's insane, and you don't make that much money there. So I was like, and then they end up agreeing.
So in that meeting, who were you talking to?
So I was talking to this guy that I had interview for 3 hours, that gave me the job, and it was very like I was very.
Just you and him.
Me and him and my boss had I had previously talked to my boss and say, look, boss, I really need this, and my boss was like, I know, I'm gonna do everything I can for you to get there. And when I talked to this guy that I had interviewed, I said, look, I really want, and he was like, you know, it's not up to me. I would give you all the money you want, but it's the budget thing. And then at the end of the day, he went talking to the big bosses, and they ended up giving me 35. After 1 year and winning awards, we won awards with WikiLeaks. That was a very good thing as well, because winning awards leverages you.
Yeah.
As much as you don't care for the awards, like I don't give them for awards, but they change everything. I got my visa because of these awards, and I never cared for that award, you know, but it's very important. So because of the awards and because, you know, I was very dedicated, at the end, after 6 months, I asked to go for 45. And that was like me wanting to be rich, you know, like 45, I would get very comfortable. Maybe I could get a better house. But they said, no, not 45. But they gave me 42, which was a winning. If I haven't asked, I wouldn't have gotten. So I went for 42 for the entire 3 years, because it was harder to push. And anyway, 42 at that time, despite the fact I didn't have money at the end of the month, much money, I had a nice house near the office, you know, sharing. But conclusion, like always ask. Like, and another thing that I learned was, like, I did a research of markets about people with my skills. So I had different skills. I had the skills of a graphic designer, then I had an animation designer. If you combine and do it's not one or the other, it's an average of both. Then I did a huge research, like maybe 60 or 70 job roles and payments in the London metropolitan area, and the salaries, and they were all above mine, you know? So I was like, okay, this is the market. I can get my job elsewhere. I didn't want, and I wouldn't want to leave the Guardian, but I needed to say, like, I'm in demand, you know? So this is very important. When you ask for a raise, first of all, be very sure that you are performing well, which I was, and secondly, do lots of research and try to research people with a little bit ahead of you, which is where you want to go. so they get more salary, but then it shows your employee that you are actually thinking on the longer term, you know. So that's, for me, it was a small winning, you know. 42.
Did you bring that research?
Yes, I send the email with all the links and PDFs, you know, and then if they need it, I could print. But I send everything by email and say like, look, I'm so sure I need to make more money, and I'm valid, and it's not just because I want. It's because look at the rates, you know. Yeah, against facts and data, it's very hard to come up with an excuse. So they had to put it up the game a little bit. So after 3 years, you know, your line of development, you are like this, learning every day and feeling super challenged. At some point, your line starts to stabilize, right? After 3 years, I started to, it's not new stuff for me, you know, I'm feeling very confident. I could talk to everybody, every editor. I could come up with ideas. Basically, people wanted to work with the interactive team. In the beginning, it was me and my boss, and after 1 year, we were 7, from which everybody was a boy, except myself. And beside the fact that it really worked well because they really respected me, my opinion was taken in consideration, and we worked very well together, I found the same thing with the Mariah Carey situation. Like, we are not telling enough, you know, diversity of stories. So then I started becoming a mentor at The Guardian, organizing this gardening masterclass.